excited about that. Now, we're going to consider young people through the lens of education, and a real expert in this field, and somebody, again, who is super passionate about young people having access to the best physical activity, PE and school sport that's absolutely possible to them. A great friend, so please welcome Chief Executive of the Youth Sport Trust, Alison Oliver. Just checking about your coffee break there and whether I need to speak quickly.
We'll lose the questions.
Okay, that's fine.
Keep your coffee.
Thanks, Yvonne, for the introduction. And can I just thank all the other speakers? Yvonne challenged us to think about taking away something at the end of today, if not many things, and just listening to you all, I've taken away lots and lots. And I'm hoping that there'll be a little bit of a seamless journey for you into where I go next, specifically focusing on education. I know there aren't all teachers in the room, so take this quote in the spirit of what it's intended here. We deal in optimism, we deal in hopes and dreams here. We are incredibly fortunate, I think, to work in the industry we all work in, which is largely a positive environment. I know there are days when we bang our heads against a brick wall, but largely we're dealing in great stuff. And I always use little hope in my presentations because she's looking in the mirror there with her own hopes and dreams. And actually the reality of that comes down to us as professionals to find ways of unlocking her potential and let her do what she wants to do. So there's lots for us to do, but I feel eternally optimistic because I know we have a fabulous sector here. And with connecting with a system-wide approach, and much of the learning that we gain from Kenny there is about how we can be more outward-looking as a sector to connect up because of young people sitting at the centre of that much bigger ecosystem. I was really disappointed to open the press this morning and read the article from Birmingham University about schools getting children physically active does nothing to obesity. Not disappointed because of the conclusion they've come to, but just massively frustrated that what will happen now, potentially, is a perception that therefore we shouldn't be doing any physical activity in schools because it kind of makes no difference. And that's where I want to start my presentation. Of course, we know that those children in that study that were physically active, we may not have had an impact on their healthy weight, but my goodness, there will have been all sorts of other benefits that they glean. And I'm focusing on the education sector, and that's why I put up Plato's quote here, that one of the best things about physical activity, play, sport, physical education is it reveals a whole side of young people that many other things never do. And I never want us to get lost in this world of physical health and well-being, that we miss the wider benefits to mental health, emotional well-being, social well-being that sport brings. And when I'm talking about schools, the reason I flag this up is any of you working in education, you know all too well, they're not GPs, they're not hospitals. The job is not there to improve the health of the nation. And the job there is to educate young people and equip them with the skills and knowledge and understanding to have the very best chances in life. So we've got to, again, mould what we're doing in our world, particularly at this moment in time, to make sure it speaks to that education agenda. And that's why, Sharon, your piece was so inspiring for me in terms of physical literacy and the impact that it has on everything from the simplicity of handwriting. And of course, as Jane said, any of us in this business, we have a massive responsibility on our shoulders. You know the Maya Angelou quote, people will forget what we do, they'll forget what we say, but they will never forget how we feel. And if we get it wrong, we get it wrong for life, as Jane said. So second kind of key message is keep focusing on that no negative experiences that Jane said. If we do nothing else but make people feel comfortable and happy moving, we've made a huge indent in a generational issue that we're facing. And there we go. There it is, written large. It's not just about obesity and overweight. It is increasingly about mental health and well-being. But it's also about isolation. It's about tolerance, a lack of compassion in society. And for those many children, whether they're in year 6s going through their SATs or year 10 and 11 in schools, it's about exam stress as well. So if you're working in a school environment, this context is really important because of the impact all of these things have on young people's ability to access learning. Schools focus hugely on high-quality teaching and learning. If you go into any professional development day in a school, that's what the focus will be on. But of course, if the young people aren't fit enough to learn, whatever we pour into the child just leaks out the bottom if they're not emotionally, mentally well, and if they're not socially engaged and feeling confident in themselves. But what I do need to flag, and one of the reasons why I always love the opportunity to talk to any audience I can, sorry, you're going to get my usual tirade, is we are also facing a little bit of a crisis in our schools at the moment around where physical education and school sport is. In primary schools, more money than we could ever imagine. £320 million a year in the primary premium. But at the same time, we have fewer teachers teaching physical education than we've ever had. We've got lots of other organisations, agents and individuals working in schools who are bringing masses of added value, don't get me wrong. But if it means they're taking teachers out of teaching physical education, when that primary PE and sport premium ends, who delivers PE when there's no money to buy in others? So I'm going to come back, as I was asked to in this presentation, and talk particularly about how we influence the impact of the premium. But also in secondary schools, the accountability measures on head teachers, the e-baccalaureate, changing an assessment of GCSE PE, all of it is like a collision of stars, meaning we're getting less and less time on the curriculum for physical education. And that often is the only universal entitlement we can give to a child to the things we all feel so passionate about. So we have got a fight on our hands. We've got a fight on our hands for young people, but we've got a fight on our hands for the system to make sure it's, as Jane says, fit for purpose. It's not putting children off being active. It's the last thing we want it to do. But if we lost that system altogether, those who even are inspired by it at the moment would go too. So we've got to hang on to it and improve it. So I was asked to focus on 4 things, I think, and the remainder of my presentation is just going to touch on each one for a couple of minutes. I'm going to talk about influencing the primary premium, and I'm going to talk about a 2020 vision. How do we help schools and parents get this 30 active minutes in the school day and 30 minutes at home? And for me, that's all about nailing the messages. Some of them you've heard so brilliantly articulated already. In secondary schools, I firmly believe if we do nothing, PE will disappear from secondary schools. It took hundreds of years to fight for it to be in the curriculum. It'll disappear within 2 or 3 years, just because the subject is not fit for purpose. And then how do we harness it all? And this will be a very simple message at the end. So just on your 2020 vision, anyone who's either in a primary school now or supporting primary schools, can I just urge you to have all of your focus on the children who'll come into year 1 in 2020, 2021. We don't know whether the primary premium will go on beyond that. Who knows? It'd be fantastic if it did. I think we should core fund the support for PE and school sport in the same way that we core fund the National Health Service. But history tells us we won't have that money forever. And the economic climate, potential political changes, all of it threaten it. So all of our energy and focus has to be on what will be different because we've had £320 million a year for the next 8 terms going into our schools. And not to mention the 160 million that we've been having since 2013. What will be different? What will be different in terms of the people? Will teachers be more confident, more inspired, understand physical literacy and its place across the curriculum better? Will our practice be more inclusive, as Jane said? Will it be broader? Will it be ensuring that young people's voice is part of our practice and we're genuinely responding to, as Jane called them, customers in front of us? And how will our policies have changed? Has the curriculum design changed? The way we assess the curriculum? How the school day is organised? Will those things have changed? So at the Youth Sport Trust, we're absolutely passionate about putting things out in the marketplace, as others are, to make that difference. So Start to Move would be our best bet, ours, there will be others, our best bet of upskilling primary classroom teachers to deliver physical literacy that, as Sharon says, will make a difference not just to their future engagement with physical activity, but to their access to learning in class. In a policy context, we're trying to make sure that schools are active environments where children don't sit for 6 or 7 hours solidly in the day. So our Active 3030 programme is just all about creative ideas that you can use to create movement in the school day. That doesn't mean I need another 30-minute lesson every day or I need to somehow coerce staff to do more after-school activity. Our world's changed, doesn't it? Our generation, I think, thinks about physical activity as something you do compartmentalised in the day. I go to the gym, I play in a club, I go for a walk, I take my dog out. Where this generation and generations to come is going to have to be, we're going to have to engineer it back into our life, because everything that's happened, digital, mechanical, technological revolutions have taken activity out of our life. So our schools have got to re-engineer movement into the school. Best idea I saw 2 weeks ago, a school that had designed a one-way system around school. So you couldn't get from A to B on the shortest possible route. You had to take the longest possible route. Genius, absolute genius. Got children moving. How do we make sure that our lessons are active? Active literacy, active numeracy. There's a whole market around active pedagogy out there. So how are we making sure that our lessons are taking advantage of, I think it was Sharon again who said it, that when we want young people to learn best, we have to get them moving. The brain only works in the way it was designed to work when we're physically moving. Your neural pathways only fire when you're moving, when you've got oxygenated blood in your brain. And then, of course, what we're teaching. So Jane talked about which activities. But where I'm going to go, particularly when I talk about secondary, is what is the purpose of physical education in schools today? In 2018, why is it there? And it ought to be on the tip of our tongue. Absolutely, the purpose of physical education in our school should be on the tip of our tongue. If we're an organisation supporting a school, we should know what schools are trying to do with physical education, but we don't. I can ask a room of very well qualified, very experienced subject coordinators in primary or subject leaders in secondary and say, what's the mission statement for your department? They either don't know, or they stumble about for 4 or 5 minutes, or they'll say something and someone else in their department will say something different. So we've got to get to a point where we're absolutely clear what physical education stands for. And at primary, it stands for physical literacy, and equipping young people with the ability to move comfortably and confidently, and in doing so, access all the other things that their body can do. But at secondary, it's about life skills. It's got to be about developing resilience, teamwork, compassion, communication, all the things that have been stripped out of life. But you and I know sport develops better than anything else. Nailing the argument in schools and with parents comes back to changing the narrative completely. Anyone recognise that one? Yeah, got it. Maslow? Yeah, we've all done it. Hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs explains to us a whole series of planks that have to be in place if we're ever to achieve our potential. Look what's on there. If young people are to achieve their potential, what every parent wants, and if you're a school leader or a school governor, what you want, we've got to have these things in the plank. So our argument, our narrative for why physical education is on the curriculum is not about sport. It's not about equipping young people with the knowledge and understanding of sport so that they can carry on and play. That's great, but that's not why it's in education. It's in education because of this. I think this was on Kenny's slide, actually. You know, all of the science now that clearly correlates physical activity and cognitive performance. There's a plethora of evidence to show. It's one of the reasons why, sadly, people who suffer from early onset dementia, one of the first things they get prescribed with is physical activity. Our brains as human beings are the biggest in the whole mammal family because we have the ability to control the most complex movement. The reason why you have a big brain is because you can move so well. So if you want to get the best out of your big brain, you have to keep moving. And then, of course, we have to help parents understand, and they just simply replay back sometimes the narrative that's given to them. You know, the fact that English, maths and science, core subjects, numeracy, literacy is really, really important. That's what they go in and they're interested in when they go into school. That's what they're interested in if they're going to support their child with some homework. We've got to help parents understand, again, has already been impressed today, that there's a job here to be done. And physical literacy is as important as language literacy, and we have to help young people to develop movement. It might happen naturally from birth, but as we know, modern life engineers it out of them. So we've got to find ways to help them engineer it back in. And I love this one, which you're not going to see because it's going to flick through. I love this one, but it just reminds us, doesn't it, that sometimes there's still this view that when we're doing school sport, I don't know why Kate's doing that. I'll just keep flipping it back. There's obviously someone up there saying, get off, they need the coffee. It reminds us that while parents aren't responsible for the talent of their child, they are responsible for the social skills that they present with. And again, sport is such an important tool. So I'm coming towards the end of this little bit, for whoever's up there trying to kibosh me. We need to repurpose what we're doing, and we need to repurpose the narrative. This virtuous circle is the heartbeat of what schools must be helped to understand with your support. So if they want young people that achieve well, progress well, get the appropriate attainment for their ability, we have to get them well physically, socially and emotionally. And the key to that is what we have in our hands of PE and school sport. But it does mean that what we offer needs to look different. So we can't just be offering technical and tactical. We have to have lessons and schemes of work which are about resilience and about communication. The sport is the vehicle. We pick the right sports because they have all the teachable moments in them to develop these outcomes. Not we pick the sports because, as I did as a PE teacher, I love netball, so you're all going to do netball. We pick the sport because it's the one that delivers the best. So we're on a bit of a mission at the YST. We think PE is a bit of a tarnished brand. I think it needs to be rebranded. And we think the letters PES, PE in sport, could absolutely equally be substituted for physical, emotional and social well-being. And we've got some great pioneering departments who've already done this, merged with PHSE. And then what we'll see is a physical education journey that makes some sense. I'm not doing netball for the 11th year, you know? And trust me, I taught that. I did teach that. I taught, secondary. I taught every single year, same group, kids dodging and passing. Just thought for some reason that they were really enjoying it. I was having a great time. But we want to start with the physical literacy dominating, but not exclusively. Using physical education, physical activity and sport to develop the cognitive performance, the social interaction and health understanding. But as young people progress through their education, and if we've done our job right, physical me is a tiny bit, a tiny, tiny bit. It's just a vehicle. All of the teachable moments are in other areas. So it all comes down to our intention. What do we intend to do, particularly in education? And if we intend to get young people just active for health, we're going to lose, because schools are not GPs and they're not hospitals. If we intend to use the richness of what we had and go back to Plato's quote, learn more about a man in an hour of play than a lifetime of conversation, then we've got to start unpicking what we have in our hands and intentionally coaching and teaching and developing resources and materials and support that deliver it. So coming back finally to the primary premium, the Youth Sport Trust is a values-led charity, and we have 4 values, and I'm just going to use these as my sum up. Our first value is integrity. If we use the primary premium to do things which are quick and easy, because PE and sport is just another thing on a busy schedule of a school leader, and the easiest thing to do is to let that money slip through our hands into providers who can take it off our hands and can do it for us, we've missed a once-in-a-lifetime moment to transform a system. Help teachers be more confident, understand its place, and forevermore want to deliver PE because they know it'll help their children learn in other areas. Secondly, we have a responsibility to make sure that what we do responds to, again, as Sharon said, the young person at the heart. Put them in the middle of this. And it's not what we want for sport, it's what they can get out of it and what they need. So we have a responsibility to be up to date on not just the obesity statistics, but certainly the emotional and mental health situations, and indeed increasingly, sadly, this whole issue of compassion, tolerance and understanding, which is disappearing as young people communicate less and less. Our third value is partnership working. Work together. We've heard it today. We've heard about the system. But if you're in a primary school and you're using your primary PE and sport premium, work with partners that are going to be here in 2020 and 2021. Think about, will they still be side by side when you haven't got a wallet of cash? So work with local partners that are there on the ground, that want to build with you and build things for the long term. And then finally, just let's make sure that young people can trust us to make best use of this moment that we have and the money that we have, because I'd love it to be there forevermore, but all of my instincts say we've got possibly 8 terms left to change the world. Thank you very much.